my hope and my faith and trust and reliance is on God, because I know that He's going to come through every single time. He's going to save me every single time I get in a mess, as long as I'm coming back to Him and asking Him to do that. I didn't have a lot of faith example in my family. I know that my parents did believe in God, but we never really went to church past maybe when I was 3 or 4 years old. So I did not grow up Catholic, didn't grow up necessarily in a Christian home, but I knew that my family believed that there was a God. I'm a convert to the Catholic Church, one of the first, I would assume, because most of my family is more of the Presbyterian or Baptist side. In fact, when I was going to church with friends, I didn't have a lot of support from my family doing it, so I didn't really think it was a big deal. So when I got baptized, my parents didn't even show up for it. So I thought, oh, it must not be that big of a deal. Like, they kind of hyped it up to be this really big thing. And my parents were like, oh yeah, go to church with your friends and you're getting baptized, great. And so to me, it didn't seem like a really big aha moment or something that was important. So I kind of just stopped going to church after that because it didn't seem important to me. I was baptized actually as a 13-year-old in a Baptist church. And I was baptized there because I had friends that invited me to a youth group when I was in middle school, and I ended up there a few times and they were like, you need to get baptized. And so I did. And that's kind of how that happened, since my family wasn't going, and I have a really large family of 8 brothers and sisters, and nobody else was going, so it was kind of like, well, I guess I don't need to go. And so there just wasn't this motivating push for it or encouragement of it, so it just never seemed like something that you go to church for answers or for a place of refuge. You know, it wasn't given to me in that way, I guess. I think when I stopped going, like, they didn't really even follow through, like, or, you know, follow up with me, like, hey, how come you're not coming back anymore? I think it was just kind of like, okay, we got her baptized, and then I just kind of fell off the face of the earth to them, I guess. I don't know how you would say it, but there was no real draw back in, you know, and so I just didn't go to church at all for many years after that. So what really led me to the Catholic Church is just a life of sin. You know, I made a lot of poor decisions. I didn't surround myself with a community of believers or people who believed that God existed. I didn't really surround myself with people who thought their lifestyle needed to be reflective of something other than the world we live in now, I guess I would say. And so it just, I just continued to just choose really bad things in my life. And I was at a really low place because I was seeking to find just companionship. I think was the biggest thing I was looking for. I felt lonely and empty in all of my friendships. Nothing felt sustainable, and it didn't feel even joyful. You know, I had friends, but it all felt very surface level. There's just no depth to them. And I just always had this longing. Like, there's just something in my heart saying there's something more. And I got to a place where I just was just thinking there's just no point to life. Like, there's just nothing left because I have made all these poor decisions and there's been no support or any answer to show me like why we're here, or like what is the purpose of all of this, you know, why pain and suffering, why all of this. And I had a friend who invited me to go to a chapel in La Jolla, and I was like not having it, you know, because I was just like, what am I gonna find there? I've never really felt welcome or worthy to walk through church doors, so I didn't anticipate feeling anything different that day. And he was like, well, that's okay, I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna pray a rosary and you're welcome to stay out here if you want. And I was like, great, I will, you know, and I had an attitude about it. I sat on the steps and I was like, no way I'm walking through those doors. And you know, I don't know what happened in that moment, but something happened and pushed me to walk through the doors, and I went in, and I don't know how long I was there, but something happened when I walked in those doors. And it was very much like, you know, people say, oh, you have this aha moment, or God spoke to me, or he broke into my heart, or he wrecked my life. And yeah, those things are true. But in layman's terms, or, you know, regular language, I just kind of felt a peace. I felt something I had never felt before. And it was like this huge presence in the space. And actually I was drawn to the tabernacle, and I sat right in front of it, I was praying in front of it. I had no idea about the Eucharist, had no idea about what was there until years later. But in that moment, something drew me there, and nothing was the same after that. Like, I just knew that was home. That was my refuge. That was what I was seeking all that time. And that's how I ended up there. I actually didn't do anything. I didn't even talk about my experience for a while, and I didn't even tell the friend who invited me there, because I was like, I need to find out what's going on. I'm a learner naturally, so it's like, I'm gonna learn everything I can about this place, and because there's a reason that it felt the way that it did when I walked in there. And so I actually called the church and I asked to speak to someone who could tell me more about the Catholic Church, and like, awesome, come on in. And I was very blessed to meet a woman who was in charge of the RCIA program that was very encouraging and enthusiastic, and she welcomed me to one of their meetings. And So I just started asking a bunch of questions, and I was like, wow, like all the questions I've been asking about like life and pain and suffering, they make sense because of the crucifix and the Eucharist. And like, it just like all these things were clicking, like, whoa, life does have a purpose. And it just felt so right. Like it felt, like I keep saying, it felt like home. It really did. Like it just felt like this is what you've been searching for. This is where you're supposed to be. This is where you belong, you know? And so it was just a really cool experience to get those questions answered. And then I called that friend and I said, hey, I'm gonna be doing the rite of entrance into the church. And he was like, what? Like, when did this happen? I didn't even know you were like seeking or asking questions. So I was like, yeah, I kind of was doing it on my own. But in the next day in the mail, I had like stuff, an Amazon box of like a Catholic Bible, the Catechism, like Imitation of Christ. I mean, he went big, the Roman Missal, like he sent me everything he thought I would need for, you know, becoming Catholic. Jesus is my savior because he continues to rescue me out of all of my messes in life. And I'm very grateful for that.